Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, top of the hour, 11 o'clock here in Cleveland, Ohio on this Monday morning. We've already done an hour, WKYC Plus, so if you're just now tuning in on the YouTube channel and saying, wait a minute, welcome back, what's going on, what did I miss? We now start the show at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. That hour is not available on YouTube. That is only available on WKYC Plus, so if you don't have the app, get it. You can watch us from 10 to 11 exclusively every day on the WKYC Plus app. Then at 11 o'clock, you can catch us as you normally do on YouTube, but we sign off at noon. Our show now goes from 10 until noon, the 11 o'clock hour simulcast on YouTube and WKYC Plus. Change is good, I'm told, Mikey McNuggets. Isn't that true?
This is all upward and onward for UCSS, and it's going to help us continue to grow the show to a global audience like it was always intended. But we got a lot to talk about in this second hour, including some things Jarvis Landry said over the weekend. But we start with a different Browns topic. In free agency, the Browns invested a lot of money into their offensive line. Zion Johnson, Elgin Jenkins, Tevin Jenkins. They may draft an offensive lineman. Outside of the quarterback, because that's the obvious and easy answer, what player on the Browns offense will benefit the most in 2026? Once again, not including the quarterback, to an improved offensive line. Is it a running back? Is it one of the receiving threats? Who do you see being the biggest beneficiary of a much improved offensive line unit this upcoming season?
I was going to say, I would have said the running backs prior to that anyway. The quarterback is the cliche answer to talk about. And obviously, we hyper-focus on the quarterback. But when you watching all these film and you watch the blocking assignments that we've been talking about, the Browns' run game last year was – there were times where I would watch film and be like, they are busting so many assignments. I don't know what their assignment should have been. I don't understand why this guy's in the backfield. There are times where you got defensive linemen that are just back there. It would be on my whole realm of possibility that I just couldn't understand what the blocking assignments were and why we could not run the ball. There are times where Quinshon Judkins is getting hit in the backfield, and before he makes his first cut, I don't care who you got back there. Barry Sanders, maybe Barry Sanders. He could get that off, but it's Barry. But other than that, the running game is a major part of what is going to help your quarterbacks. You need to have a run game where you can convert 3rd and 2s. You don't need to bring in tight ends and run jet reverse motion. Can we not line up in the I formation and get downhill and run the football? When the Browns have been good with Nick Chubb and other things like that, that's what they were doing. I think the push up front and getting those guys up front, and they may even go with another guy, another tackle, another guard, or whatever the case may be, a couple more linemen. I think it by far helps the running backs the most.
I don't think there's another answer. I don't know how you can make a case for anything but the running back.
I will. Just wait, because I will.
Please do. Yeah. What was the stat?
Yeah, because we're a clean sweep here. Guys, I say the same thing.
What was the stat? Quinshon was getting hit how far behind the line of scrimmage?
Behind the line of scrimmage, on average.
Initial contact was coming behind the line of scrimmage. The receivers and the tight ends, of course you're going to benefit from it, but you also, regardless of the protections, I'm not trying to dismiss protection. Protection's important. But Deshaun and or Shador are both hold the ball the longest among any quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
Even if they have good protection, their two guys are going to hold the ball.
Right.
So that's where it doesn't really correspond with me or translate with me when you're talking a topic like this. It absolutely matters to the running back. So, yeah, to me, it's Quinshon all day is obviously going to benefit the most from better protection up front.
Yeah, I agree. It's clean sweep out here, Mike, because for the two things. Number one, there were times last year where Shedeur Sanders' time to throw was leading the NFL. He had the most time to throw out of all the. Now
he held the ball the longest.
That's why he wasn't getting rid of it quickly. But the fact of the matter is, he was still standing there holding the ball for over 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
So I don't think pass protection was this major issue last year. I don't.
No,
it can always be better, and I agree with you. I don't want to downplay protection, but when I watched the running game, I saw the same thing G. Bush saw. There were times that I think the offensive line thought we were in pass block.
I don't know what they were doing.
His time to throw was The numbers are the numbers, for sure.
Yeah, they don't
I'm not
change.
disagreeing.
But
a lot of it was him running for his life and trying to extend.
I get that.
There were times
there
where
was
protection
some of that.
There were times the protection was horrendous.
Yes.
And there were times where he did not help.
But when was the run blocking great?
Oh, never.
I mean, I didn't see it last year. I was so at one point I thought, well, Judkins being out of the lineup, okay, that's going to hurt us, and it did. But at the same time, I just thought most of Judkins' stuff was Judkins doing the work. He was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage on the reg. I think his average was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. You can't have that. I think this offensive line is going to be much stronger in the pass block, and I wouldn't be run block. I wouldn't be surprised if you see, and again, in this trend in the NFL, where running games didn't win Super Bowls. We saw 2 years ago the Eagles win it when Saquon was all-world, and we saw last year a team win it with a running back. It's changed, guys. It's not the drop back and sling it 35 times and throw for 400 yards anymore. That part might come back because it's all cyclical. But right now, the NFL is about if you can run the ball effectively, and even if your passing game is mid, you can convert on third downs and keep the chains moving. If you can run the ball in today's NFL, you are going to be successful. And it wasn't like that 5 years ago. So I think the Browns on this one have recognized that trend, and they've sort of gotten, I don't want to say in front of it, because in front of it was the Eagles.
Yeah.
They were the ones that saw, if we get Saquon, we're a Super Bowl champion. So I think now the Browns are sort of on board with that thinking, and I think that's a good thing. I'd rather be on the front end of that wave than the end of it when it would likely be cycling out anyhow.
There's obviously a great case to be made for Quinshon. I hear you guys. But let me tell you why it's Jerry Jeudy. So when you look at how Shedeur Sanders, it could be Deshaun Watson, it could be Dylan Gabriel, the line wasn't good enough last year in totality. And specifically with Shedeur, he and Harold Fannin had this innate connection from the get-go. Those two were locked in on the same page from start to finish. When things broke down, Shedeur was looking for 44 first, second, third, foremost. When Jerry Jeudy and Shedeur got into some of their little back and forth on the sideline, what was the one thing they always came back to? Right? They weren't on the same page, correct?
Communication.
Part of the communication breakdowns were Shedeur was looking at the hot read in one way, and Jerry was operating the hot read in the other way. They weren't on the same page in that. That obviously comes with reps, and they talked about last year they just needed more reps, and we killed the whole topic of practice reps for Shedeur. I don't want to dive back into that. They'll have an offseason there. If the offensive line can give Shedeur more time to operate, read, get from first to second to third read, I think there'll be less opportunities for miscommunications and misreads between Shedeur and Jerry on specific hot routes, and he won't go back to defaulting to Harold Fannin as his first option on every single pass play, which, by the way, was not a bad idea last year. It was by far their best offensive weapon. I don't even say that as a criticism, but I think the single biggest beneficiary of the improved protection is Shedeur's ability to now get through his progressions. When he gets through his progressions, Jerry Jeudy becomes a much bigger factor in the pass game. And I go back to the Tennessee game in particular, Jay. When they did have the best protection they had in any game from like the third game on after Green Bay to the end of the season. That was the game Jerry went off, right? And two of his big plays were when Shedeur hit him on a little post route where he threw it over the linebacker in between the safety. There was no read. That was Shedeur. There was no hot read. That was Shedeur with protection, with time, being able to throw the ball downfield, which was his best trait as a rookie. I hear the Quinshon Judkins argument. I just think from where he was last year to where he can be in 2026, the improved offensive line is going to do wonders for the Shedeur, Jerry Jeudy.
Here's what I would say to shoot that down. And look, I'm not going to argue with you. The answer to this is everybody benefits.
Exactly.
That's why the offensive line is the linchpin to a team. If you have a good offensive line, you can do both. You can pass the ball and run the ball. It's vital to success. That's why when they rolled this offensive line out there last year, you looked at the schedule and said, where are the wins going to come from? I don't think there's any question that all of these guys will be benefactors of, and chief among them, the quarterbacks. But I think the reason it's going to be Judkins is because he's the primary ball carrier. Mm-hmm. He's going to carry the ball 75% of the Browns' carries. Whereas it's not just Jeudy that will benefit from better pass protection.
Yeah.
All of the pass catchers will benefit from better pass protection. So you've got to split that pie maybe 3 or 4 ways. So his production might go up 25% while everybody else's goes up 25%.
And they could draft a Cardinal Tate. And
they could get a Tate in there, and that would also help.
Hear your
so
side of it.
I think you're splitting the benefit of a better offensive line between all the pass catchers, where Quinshon Judkins is the primary ball carrier.
So you're not buying the Dylan Sampson hype that was selling?
I am not buying that. I think he'll be a fine complementary piece. I think he's got a place in this offense, but your locomotive is Quinshon Judkins, and he's going to get the bulk of the carries, and I think he's going to, if he's healthy, he's going to have a big year.
No, I think, too, a lot of it will improve. I think when you take about the look at the time you have to throw, Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson like to expend plays. They like to run around and make plays. So that adds to the level of time that they have back there. Now, I do think that they like that playmaking ability, but there is also something to be said for, hey, I just want you to get to the first read and hit it, and let's go. Like, let's move the offense. Let's be quick. Let's be decisive about certain things. So I think that, and plus the fact that I think Todd Monken is going to cook up an offense that is going to be very multiple, and I think that a nice running game, play action, and different things like that helps everybody out. But if I look at this thing, I got to say Quinshon Judkins, because I just watched too many times. He's just getting hit in the backfield, and he has nothing. He has nowhere to go. So I think the run game is that.
All right, we're going to stay with the Browns after the break. Did you guys hear Jarvis Landry's comments?
Crazy.
Jarvis Landry going
spicy.
Unplugged.
Spicy.
Jarvis Landry. I like that version of Jarvis Landry.
Spicy.
I always love it when players, and they can do this when they're out of the game, when players start spilling tea about their days in the NFL, coaches, players, other things. We had some of that with Jarvis Landry. If you missed those comments, we're going to play them on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on UCSS, on WKYC Plus, and YouTube is back right after. Welcome back, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's not on the agenda for today, but we're talking in the break about the flag football highlights over the weekend, and Tom Brady at 48 still throwing lasers to Gronk.
Spin it.
That dude can still play the game. He can still play the game. And Team USA beat the NFL stars, and it didn't surprise me because that's their game. There's so many nuances to the flag game, but that's going to be an interesting developing story over the next couple of years to see whether or not it's a roster filled with NFL players like we initially thought, or if it's going to be guys that have already been living in that universe that have mastered it.
Got you.
Because they beat the NFL in the championship game. I think they won maybe 24-14, or it might have been even more than that. But it was fun to watch, fun to look at. Thought I'd bring that up. All right, Jarvis Landry, goes off, doesn't he, Mike?
Yeah, he sat down with Leonard Fournette on the Fourth and South podcast, excuse me. And there was 2 clips from that caught our attention. So we're going to do the first one, then we'll do the second one. The first one is in regards to play calling. And in case you missed it, this is what Jarvis Landry and Leonard Fournette had to say in regards to Kevin Stefanski possibly giving up play calling for a 3rd time in his 6 years as the Browns head coach. Let's take a listen.
I know when I was there for 100% fact, when we were struggling as an offense, I know Kevin Stefanski himself gave up play calling to AVP. The same thing that he's done, that we have guys that have told us that he's done throughout the years of not being able to get it done as a play caller and then putting it off on somebody else. Then the team gets success and then he takes over play calling again. I don't know how much history he's going to have as a head coach. But again, with this record, only thing he really got going for him is those 2-time Coach of the Year.
I love that. The only thing he's got going for him is a 2-time Coach of the Year. That's not nothing. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, did you enjoy the play? So that is kind of burying the lead a little bit. But what was interesting to me, and Mike, it wouldn't have been giving up play calling for a 3rd time. It would have been giving up play calling for a 1st time. We never heard that.
Well, I mean, 3rd time in his tenure as the Browns.
Right.
Yeah, but it would have been his 1st time, and then when he gave it up for the second time,
that was the
first that we knew of it. I don't know, and I'm not going to say that Jarvis isn't telling the complete truth here, but I don't think he really said that with his chest. And how in the world could that have possibly happened and no one in the media ever found out?
That's crazy because Jarvis Landry, I've never known Jarvis Landry to be a hot take artist.
He's not.
He looks like he was the dude in Hard Knocks that was coming around telling people, hey, listen, we could be playing hard. Earl called me. He called me and said, G. Bush, did you see this? I said, I didn't see it, bro. He called me on the way home. I was going away from dinner. I said, yeah, I thought he gave it up to Alex Van Pelt. You know, he gave it. He said, no. Jarvis said before that. He said during his tenure before he gave it up the 1st time, so that would make 3 times. Now, for me, I don't know. Now, I did think it was kind of, I don't want to say strange, but Kevin right now, he's not going to be the play caller in Atlanta, right?
No.
I think Alex Van Pelt is going to be the play caller there right now.
No, Tommy.
So
Tommy's the offensive coordinator in Atlanta. Tommy's calling the plays.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So this was first I heard it. I knew he gave it up twice. But I thought it was interesting that he said, now that would mean that it would be the playoff run, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, it was. Wasn't that the playoff season?
Jarvis was gone by then. That's where I'm a little confused.
I
am too, because he was saying like he'd heard this secondhand from guys that were still on the team.
Play it again. He said when he was there.
So, no, Jarvis was here during the first playoff run.
First playoff.
Jarvis was there in 2020 and 2021.
So this is why I wish he would have been just a little bit more specific.
Yeah, I would like to ask him that too.
Because in 2020, everything was great. That was the COVID year. Nobody was in the building. There's a reason that they had the most success that they've had because nobody else was in the building. It was just football. So I don't think he was insinuating then. Jarvis' only other year in Cleveland was 2021. That's when Baker hurt his shoulder and everything. And he made it like, play the clip again. He said Kevin gave it up and pulled it back. Well, where in the schedule?
Do you guys want to hear it again? We can play it again.
At least the beginning of it.
It's just 35 seconds, so we'll play the whole thing. This is the clip again.
I know when I was there for 100% fact, when we were struggling as an offense, I know Kevin Stefanski himself gave up play calling to AVP. The same thing that he's done, that we have guys that have told us that he's done throughout the years of not being able to get it done as a play caller and then putting it off on somebody else. Then the team gets success and then he takes over play calling again. I don't know how much history he's going to have as a head coach. But again, with this record, only thing he really got going for him is those 2-time Coach of the Year.
Now that got to mean 2021.
Okay, so here is 2021: loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. Now you tell me where in there he was going to give up play calling and then take it back. I'm not saying
there were 3 losses in a row in weeks 12 through 15.
So then they lost 3 in a row, and then he took it back for the final game of the season?
No, he may have given it up.
He said he took it back.
Well, does that mean 20 or 21?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
there's too much vagueness to it.
And
there were some edit points in there. I I'm always hesitant to
I went
respond.
back and watched the pod.
Did you
I
see the
watched
whole
the
thing?
Because
there were edit points in that soundbite. I'm always leery of that.
I wasn't
Well, it was
listening.
an hour and a half
I
pod,
wasn't
so
listening
it
to
had-
an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know,
podcast.
but when there are edit points,
But
things
no,
get twisted.
This was right at the start, so I
Yeah.
listened to the first, and that edit is clean. Like that's
Okay.
nothing was taken out of context with that. So I just would like to know when, like if he was that, when, what year, what weeks did this happen? Because do you ever recall Kevin not having the Denny's menu?
He always had
He
it.
always
Had
had
it,
the menu.
until he gave up the play calling, and then he didn't have it. The only thing that it was my understanding at one point, Alex would script the first handful of plays coming out of the half when the Browns got the ball first. That's the only, and I had kind of heard that a couple years ago, that when you're coming out of when you're going to the half, you're coming out of the half, there's just a lot going on, and when you're getting the ball, it's helpful to have the first few plays scripted. So, to my knowledge, and again, like Jarvis is there, I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying the only thing that I've been told, or it was my understanding, was AVP would script the first handful of plays during, I don't remember when it was, what year it was, coming out of the timeout.
Yeah.
Or coming out of the half.
Halftime.
Like
That
we're
does make
gonna,
sense,
We're
too.
going to start with these first 3 or 4 plays.
Right.
That's the only thing that I had ever heard.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of everything that he said.
It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it seems to me that Jarvis is, that there's mudslinging going on at Kevin.
I
Right?
mean,
And the reason I say that is because, and it seemed to be the tenor of Fournette too, that this guy can't coach.
oh, that's exactly what they were saying.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one that's seeing that. They're basically saying, I mean, outside of his 2 Coach of the Years, what else does he have? Well, that's like saying that, outside of a guy that won one Super Bowl, what else does he have? Well, he won a Super Bowl.
There's a big difference in 2 Coach of the Years.
Well, there's a huge difference because it's a vote.
Hey.
But you can't diminish the Coach of the Years as if to say, what else does he have? But it seemed to me that the bent of that podcast was, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe he didn't like Kevin. But it seems to me that the whole thrust of that was, Kevin Stefanski's not a good coach.
Well, Kevin was the last coach you had in Cleveland.
Yes.
And it didn't go well
And
at the end.
ended his time in Cleveland.
Yes, it did.
And so
that would be the end.
I don't know.
I look at it like this. I listened to the podcast. Leonard Fournette came out earlier, and he said he wasn't a big fan of Kevin Stefanski.
Well, that came through very
And
plainly.
he's not a big fan. So
Yeah.
then Jarvis Landry, in the first part, he was like, Jarvis did give him credit. He did say in that first part of the interview that when Kevin got here and they had that playoff run, that, 2020, everything was cool.
That's the second soundbite we're going to run.
The players liked him.
We're gonna run that coming
However,
up.
it kind of fell off a little bit at the end, and then he gets into this commentary. Now, I will say, listen, he said with 100%. Now, I got to take your word. If you going to speak that, I think that's saying it with your chest. 100% accurate. He said, I'm 100% sure that he gave up play calling when I was there.
Yeah.
Now, I would have liked to specifically know
when,
like the context around it, but we have known Kevin Stefanski to give up play calling 2 other times. So, I mean, there are times where he has given up that play calling.
I think it's the stunning thing to me. Again, I can't call him a liar. He was in the locker room. He knows, and he's got the respect. I respected Jarvis as a player and as a person.
I don't know how that doesn't get out.
That's my point, Jason. My point to you is, with all of the beat reporters and all of the moles that organizations have that want to spin things their own way, that nobody would have picked up the phone and said, hey, you might want to push Kevin on who's calling the plays because it's not him.
I mean,
would have gotten out in my experience.
There were points where it was sort of a weekly occurrence of who's
going to call plays.
Yeah.
And he was answering those questions weekly.
And had that happened, I'm surprised. If that's the way it went, I'm surprised it didn't get out. But we're at the point in all this where I've been telling you guys for years, the league views Kevin differently than Cleveland does.
No question.
And that has been proven out. Look how many teams lined up to interview.
Yep.
Look, the league is telling you they believe it was a Cleveland problem. It was not a Kevin problem. We're going to find out in about 6 months who was right. Because Browns fans want to put it all on Kevin. And I get it.
Yeah.
It's easy to put it all on Kevin because now he's gone, so now things are going to be fixed, right?
Yes.
So that gives you hope. So I totally understand why they feel that way. I'm not necessarily buying it that it was true. We're going to find out in about 6 months.
The beauty of all of this drama, and really the Jarvis situation goes back to the fracturing of the locker room, if you guys remember, was centered around Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham.
Yes.
That's where this all came off the rails. And so what I think 2026 is for Browns fans and for even NFL observers that aren't in the petri dish of Cleveland or Atlanta, and we always say the beauty is we're going to find out. Like, you can't always be fraudulent. If he's fraudulent, he's going to be proven out.
Yeah.
You can't always get glow when you deserve some blame. It always comes out in the wash. That's the beauty of the NFL. It's a meritocracy. And I think 2026 is going to be a referendum on a lot of people. It's going to be a referendum on Kevin Stefanski. What is he? What is he in an environment that has better culture? What will he be?
Yeah.
So we're going to answer that question. Also, it's not just a Shedeur Sanders referendum. It's also a Deshaun Watson referendum. If either one of these two rise from the ashes and go 12-5, that affects
12-5.
Hey man, I'm reaching for the stars,
He's
brother.
praying for 8.
Listen,
you got him at 12.
I'm not predicting. I'm saying if this were to happen, it would be so overwhelming that you then would turn your eyes to Atlanta and say, Kevin, you were the problem.
Yeah.
We're going to find out because, as I always say, it's like the beauty of an experiment is that when you have a control in that experiment and you remove that control and then run the same thing back, what results do you get?
And they ran it back.
We're going to figure out what Cleveland is.
It's Cleveland
is
South now.
Is Cleveland really 4-13, 5-12, or are they an 11-6, 12-5 without Kevin?
The thing I thought was interesting was Jarvis said in 2020 everything was cool, right? Mm-hmm. Well, 2020 is when they were the most high-functioning version because there was nobody in the building, because it was COVID, because they had talent, because they were healthy.
Yeah.
Starting in 2021 is when everything started to spiral because Baker got hurt, and then the Deshaun trade, and then everything else. But the 1 year when they actually functioned like an NFL team where they had no distractions, where there was nobody else in the building, you saw the results.
Well, that's life.
Maybe the only good thing ever to come from COVID.
Hey, listen.
The Browns were a winner.
But I will say, I don't necessarily think it's the Cleveland, it's city of Cleveland versus them. I think that Kevin Stefanski, he has a player's problem. Baker has.
Well, we'll find out.
Baker, Odell, Jarvis, Myles Garrett.
We're going to find out in Atlanta for sure.
So we're going to see. Now,
Yeah.
I always said this. I want to get to a point where I don't. Kevin ain't here no more. I'm trying to talk about the Cleveland Browns.
Let me grease the skids for you. Atlanta will be a story here in Cleveland all year long.
Oh, it's gonna be.
Whether they start 5-0 or 0-5, it's going to be talked about. So get used to it.
Oh no!
We can't wish that away.
No. And I already done said, under no circumstances we can lose to the Falcons. That's
your Super Bowl.
That to me, I'm like, nah. Under no circumstances can Kevin Stefanski come here cooking. I don't want B. John Robinson scoring. I don't want Tua looking like he's good. I don't want none of that. You know why? Because then we out here looking crazy. No. He's not going. We had 13 points when Kevin was here. He better not be getting 55 points, Miles. We need that to stop.
That's the game, really. I mean, in the macro, the whole 26th season is a referendum. But if you're looking for one game, you can only watch 3 hours of football this year. That's got to be it.
Yeah, but I still don't think that rises to the level of the Browns against Baker in Carolina opening week. That to me,
that was big too.
That was
Forced
higher.
ball to puke.
That was huge.
That was higher than anything.
Yeah, it led to throwing up on air.
I don't know, man.
You think this is bigger? I don't think it's bigger.
Because it's Deshaun.
Facing Baker week 1.
That
was pretty.
It's Deshaun Watson.
It was intense.
Not only is Deshaun, it's Shedeur Sanders, is Prime, and you still got Andrew Berry.
Go back.
Yeah.
Y'all shaking hands, Andrew?
Go back and watch Jimmy. Go back and watch Jimmy celebrate the Cade York field goal at Carolina. That man looked like he just won the Super Bowl.
That was
it was a week 1 win.
It was. We took that.
And after that, it was a wrap. All right, we're taking a break. When we come back, part 2 of the Jarvis Landry comments. As G. Bush alluded to, he did have things going with the players until he didn't. We'll talk. Welcome back, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on WKYC Plus. If you don't have the app, download it. This 11 to 12 hour is, as it always has been, on YouTube. But we start at 10 o'clock now. So if you're just watching and thinking we're going to go to 1 o'clock, I hate to ruin your Monday, but we're done at noon. 10 to noon now are the magic hours for the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. All right, part 2 of the Jarvis discussion. It's fascinating.
It is.
Fascinating.
It is. So we talked about the play calling. Now let's get into the other comments that Jarvis made in his podcast with Leonard Fournette. And the big picture from this is, what does it say about Kevin Stefanski that so many players feel comfortable kind of bashing him now? This is the comments from Jarvis Landry on a podcast with Leonard Fournette.
Being in Cleveland and playing there, you know, he was cool to be around. It's like you say, it's like, it just almost felt like, you know, as much as he knew what he was doing, right, he really maybe didn't, right? And I think that, like, sometimes, you know, some of these coaches or most of these coaches get put in a position too soon, right? True. You know, they have success as a position coach, right? Mm-hmm. And then they get thrown into this head coaching role where, you know, you expect most of these coaches that's younger to be more personable, right? More relatable with their players. Yeah. And in most cases, it just doesn't work out that way, right? And I know, like, my time in Cleveland, especially in the beginning, man, it was great. Like, he ended up winning Coach of the Year. You know, we ended up going to the playoffs. And then for some reason, then after, bro, it just kind of felt like, you know, the spark between the connection between the players and the coaches just kind of started to dim out, right? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if he'd be a great coach in the league, right? But I do think he knows a lot about offense, right? I think, you know, I don't know how much he is involved into the analytical side of things, but I know in Cleveland that was a huge part. So, you know, I think that played a part in some of the decisions that he may have been forced to make, even with the Shedeur Sanders thing, right? Yeah. Either forced to make or persuaded to make. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That last part was interesting to me.
Yeah, what do you guys make of that?
We've always talked about the marriage between the front office and the head coaching staff and the product on the field as it pertains to analytics. Now, all of that would be secondhand information. He obviously hasn't been inside the organization. Sounds to me like he might be talking to someone who's still here, who's saying to him, yeah, Kevin's being forced to do things by the analytic department that I don't think he's completely behind. Is that the way you read it?
Oh, yeah. Well, he said that.
Yeah.
He flat out said it. And, you know, I agree with a lot of what Jarvis said there.
Especially the end.
Well, in just terms of, like, guys get thrust in positions before they're ready for them. And we've talked about that. Just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. And relating to players, again, I just think that there was a lot, like, there's NFL drama and then there's Cleveland drama. And Cleveland drama always seems, you don't see this go on in other.
No, we always lead the league in drama.
In other markets, some of the nonsense that goes on here. And I think this nonsense just got away from them, which, again, is why I'm curious to see how it goes in Atlanta. Because Atlanta, outside of the Michael Vick stuff, obviously it's a whole other level. But outside of that, I don't know if they've had a ton of stuff, nonsense and stuff like this. So we'll see. Like, I do agree. Kevin is best in a situation where there's strong leadership within the locker room. And they didn't have that in Cleveland. There wasn't a ton of great leaders here, player leaders.
Right.
And that's the type of team where I think he would have the best success, where if he needs to come in and be sort of the Monken, he's not Todd Monken.
No.
So we'll see how it goes in Atlanta. I'm really curious to see how this all plays out. But I don't think Jarvis was off on anything that he said there.
I think when you look, I've always said this. Like, you know, when you look at Kevin Stefanski, my main issue with Kevin Stefanski was just the communication. Quinshon Judkins talked about it, and he said, you know, he was on a podcast, and he said, you know, how is Todd Monken? Not to say that Todd Monken, because he has a different communication style, is going to be more successful than Kevin Stefanski. Football is more difficult than that. Just because you're a good communicator does not mean you're going to have X's and O's and it's going to break the right way. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Quinshon Judkins said, you know, with Todd Monken, it was more personable. I felt like I had a clear, a clear roadmap as to what they expected from me, what they wanted from me, what they wanted to see. And I've always thought that me as a former player, I always saw eye to eye with coaches that were more personable and we're able to communicate, whether good, bad, or indifference, whether you were upset with me. I always knew where I was with you. If you didn't agree with something I was doing, you let me know. If you told me this was my role, you stuck to what that role was. If I was doing something, and you know, the communication part just seems like there's a lot of people who had an issue with the way Kevin Stefanski went about his, and I even said, hey, I think he should have used the media more. Like he a lot of the stuff that he got in the media was because he was super vague with a lot of stuff.
100%.
He didn't even give himself an opportunity to kind of defend and deflect some of this stuff. So what ends up happening is if you don't have good communication with the media, you know what's going to happen. They're going to be on you. And then if you don't have good communication with the players, then maybe some of those players aren't going to go to bat for you and say, hold on. I heard a lot about Kevin Stefanski, but let me tell you what Kevin Stefanski has done for me, this, that, and third. And I thought one of the biggest examples of that was when he talked about his relationship with David Njoku. And he talked about after it was over and he kind of knew the writing was on the wall, he talked about him talking with David Njoku and telling him some tough things, and David Njoku turned around, grew up, and ended up becoming one of his biggest advocates. So for me, I'm not going to ever say, I may not agree with Kevin Stefanski's offense. I may not agree with Kevin Stefanski with a particular coach. That's my temperament. But I will always say that a person has an opportunity to grow and figure out what they need to do better in a different position. So I think he should probably take what he did here and as a young coach and a first-time coach and use it to an example and say, I'm going to fix this in another place, because now people are coming out saying, yeah, I kind of had a problem with that. I kind of had a problem with this. And we'll see how he takes advantage of it or uses it to his advantage.
To that point, I just thought of this. What you said triggered when Mike Brown was here with the Cavs the first time. He struggled to relate and connect with players. When he was here the second time, he struggled to relate and connect with players. He went to Golden State and learned under Steve Kerr and became a completely different coach. After that, I sat down with him for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours in Detroit. Sacramento was playing in Detroit, and I drove up to do a piece on him. He was a completely different dude, and he said, I learned under Steve that all the things that I had to get done in practice were for me. It wasn't for them. It was so that I could check this box off and say, okay, we accomplished this today. No matter how long it took, we were going to get this done, and it turned off a lot of players. I'm just making the connection.
Kenny Atkinson said the same thing. From his first
learning
stint
under
with
Steve.
Brooklyn to now,
Yeah.
after stopping in Golden State and working with Steve Kerr, how he's much more relatable to the players. The reason he got kicked out of Brooklyn or fired was he didn't relate with Kevin and Kyrie, and they wanted Steve Nash as the coach.
And
instead.
I struggle sometimes with, like, how important, because I'm not saying this sarcastically, I'm truly asking, how important is a bedside manner when you're a coach? Because sometimes I think it's not that important, and sometimes I think it's very important.
To some people, it is.
Well, there's anomalies.
Yeah.
I think if you're Bill Belichick, media relations and bedside manner matter this much.
Okay, because you win Super Bowls.
Because his football acumen and his genius was so superior that players did something with him that they're not willing to do with other coaches.
Right.
You get cachet, you get good grace because we win and we like to win. That's why things were going so well with Kevin and the players. They were winning. When things started to go south, then all of the cracks in the armor started to show themselves, because you don't show your character when you're winning. Character is exposed when you lose. You learn more about yourself in defeat than you ever will in victory. And I think what this drives home to me more than anything else is the art of hiring a head coach. Those that are in consideration for the job all have one thing in common: football acumen. Their IQ with the game of football is off the charts. But oftentimes they fail because they lack the bedside manner. Because when you come in, that football acumen is ground zero for players. That's expected.
Yeah,
How are you going to treat us interpersonally and as a group? And that's where Kevin failed. And I agree with you, is that he's fine on a team with strong leadership, because that stuff is handled by the leaders.
Yes.
Does anybody look at Brian Billick as a leader of men and a great head coach? No. He had the luxury of coaching when he had
Ray
the
Lewis.
all-time great leader on the football field on his roster. His best player was his best leader. So Brian Billick's shortcomings as a leader of men were overcome because at 12:55, it wasn't Brian Billick huddling the players up. It was Ray Lewis. And the last thing they heard was fire and brimstone from their leader, 52. Let's go do it. And Kevin is never going to be that guy.
No.
And so I think that the coaches that have succeeded, we've talked about this, you get 2 cracks at this. Mm-hmm. And if you don't master it in one of the 2, and by the way, Kevin didn't master it here.
No.
The 2 coaches of the year are great cherries on top, but there's nothing underneath it. His career record, he's under 500 by 10 games. So he didn't master it here. So he's going to get Atlanta to figure it out. And if he does, if he wants to, he'll stay there a decade or he'll get a third opportunity. If he doesn't, he'll sit out a year and become a coordinator somewhere or go back to college and do that route, which is kind of the new way of revitalizing your career. But he's going to need strong leadership in that locker room. And he didn't have it in Cleveland, and that's when things fractured. You have to be the loudest voice in the room. It can't be one of your players. I think it's good if you have players that are leaders, but when the ship is taking water, it's not up to the head engineer to rally the troops to save the day. It's the captain. Everyone's looking at the captain in times of crisis. And he is woefully deficient in that role. And handling the media, I give him a D-.
I'll be curious to see if that changes.
Because some guys do. Some guys are introspective and they look back at, or they talk to other coaches and they say, where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
Look at yourself. And, I talk on the show about how when Tibbs was fired after his first go-round and then he took a job at ESPN, and one of the things I asked him, not on the air, off it, I said, what have you been doing to reinvent yourself? And he said, I went back to school. I called all the coaches that I have relationships with, and I said, hey, can I come down and spend 3 months with you and watch your process and see how another head coach does it?
Well, Jay, you worked in newsrooms, you worked in newspapers, big organizations with media outlets. You need allies.
Absolutely.
You need allies that are your coworkers. You need allies that are on the top level, and then you might need a couple of them up there that you just touch in with every once in a while. You need somebody to say when behind the door closed meetings, you need one person to at least go to bat for you.
Yeah. You need Bill Belichick to call your owner and say, be patient. Yeah, you got the right guy.
He's all right. He's going to grow a little bit. And here's the thing. I always said, by the way, Todd Monken will go through growing pains. He's a first-time head coach.
Of course he will.
Look, people think I hate Kevin Stefanski. I don't hate Kevin Stefanski. We can have a football conversation, but the thing that Jarvis did eloquently say is, man, listen, when you a first-year coach and you don't know what you know, there are certain things when I was a first-time host that I didn't know what I didn't know. But I had the opportunity and the grace to get to a point where I can be seasoned. Some people don't get that chance and opportunity. Yeah. I think he's smart enough. He will realize, okay, I made some missteps. And just the same way we talk about Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry, in terms of drafting, Andrew Berry made some missteps. Hopefully he can figure it out. He hit with some of these other guys.
Yeah.
Can you figure out offensive line and receiver?
Yeah.
That's how we're judged in football. You made a mistake. What the heck you going to do to clean it up? But as long as he don't clean it up on our watch against the Browns, we fine.
So you came with 16-1, but the Browns beat him.
I don't know about 16-1, 8-8 or something like that. We can't do all that.
All right, we're taking a break. Turning our focus to the Cleveland Cavaliers. James Harden has made quite a difference since coming over to the team. Are Harden and Mitchell the NBA's new clutch duo? When we come back. Welcome back, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Let's talk Cavs, Mike.
Yeah, the win over New Orleans on Saturday was a bit of a roller coaster, down 15 in the fourth quarter. Then Harden and Mitchell became legitimate assassins. They scored 25 of the team's 35 points in the fourth quarter. They assisted on 4 of the 5 other baskets that players scored, meaning for the 35 points the Cavaliers scored in the fourth quarter, 33 were directly attributed to James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. Since the James Harden trade, guys, the Cavaliers' fourth quarter numbers have been incredible. A 120.7 fourth quarter offensive rating. That's the second best mark in the NBA. Their clutch offense since the Harden deal, which goes back to early February, is now the 6th best in the NBA. Prior to that Harden deal, it was 22nd.
Yikes.
Talk about an improvement. Jason, what's the biggest thing you've seen from this Harden, Mitchell, late game combination that has you excited about their potential in the playoffs?
2 guys who can close, 2 guys who you feel comfortable with the ball in their hands. And, I mean, listen, Darius wasn't he like the league leader?
He was incredible in the clutch last year. I don't want to take anything away from him.
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that they've had this type of play prior to, and everybody knows James sustains in the playoffs, but for now, right now, you feel comfortable with the ball in his hands in late game situations. I mean, I was just trying to think off the top of my head in the East, what pairings would you take over these guys? I would still take Boston. You got to take JT and Jaylen Brown.
That's fair.
Over these guys.
That's the only ones I'd take.
Yeah,
that's the list.
Because you could make a case for the Knicks, but I would take these guys.
Yeah, I would too right now.
Yeah, I got them. Here's what we back to. The 2 best guys got the ball in their hands, and now you got a guy who these passes that Harden be throwing, bad job out of me. This just goes to show you that when you are a fan in a specific city, and I like to pride myself on trying to watch as much stuff as I can, but it just goes to show you that it's just not possible, because even as much as I've seen James Harden in his whole career, I did not have a level of appreciation for the fact that how he is passing the ball to bigs. Like, I thought, and the way he can control pace. To me, LeBron is the greatest of all time at doing it. It's not close. But James Harden is phenomenal at pace, controlling the pace down to a halt or getting guys involved. And he just has the ball. When he said he is the offense, he wasn't lying.
He is.
He was not. These passes he's making off the pick and roll is crazy, and the reads that he's making. And now when you pair that skill set with the ability to shot make and to be clutch and get to the basket with Donovan Mitchell, by the way, who's hitting his free throws. And I just feel like he's hitting more of his free throws when he's going to the line at the end of the game. I just don't know. The numbers might not bear it out, but I just feel like when those 2 guys got the basketball, you feel like you got a chance. It's kind of like when Kyrie and LeBron was doing. You feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Even if it's miss or make, you feel good with the rock in the hand.
Yeah, I'll tie this back to my comment in the first hour about the Cavs. I think that I talked about the switch, knowing where it is and knowing when to throw it. Well, in the playoffs, you need your 2 best players to be your 2 best players.
Yeah.
It's great. You're going to need big performances from guys like Max Strus and Sam Merrill, and obviously Mobley and Allen are going to be needed. But the one thing that you can't question when you ask what are you going to have in a series, you can't question, are we going to have our 2 best players be our 2 best players?
Yeah.
You can't. And there were times in the last couple of years where I didn't know that we were going to get our 2 best players best performances in the playoffs, and we didn't, and we left early.
And it's fair to say you weren't sure who the 2 best players were.
Right. That's another thing.
Right.
There's no question to me now.
Yeah.
And you're right. Your point about James Harden and his distribution of the basketball, you knew it. When they acquired him, one of the things that you said you most liked about him was his passing skill set.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. When you watch it on a night in and night out basis,
different.
it does hit differently. It's not just a highlight that you see once in a while. It's James Harden constantly doing that. His ability to penetrate, get the defense to collapse, and then find someone at the rim. He is the offense. I mean, in his prime, he really was. He was that good. But he adds a layer to this club that they desperately needed. And again, I don't think they can win the NBA championship. I just think there are better teams. I think Boston's better. I think San Antonio's better. I think that Oklahoma City's better. Yeah. But let's try to push this thing and see how far we can get this year. Add the pieces in the offseason and then make a real push next season. I said earlier it's beneficial they stay in the 4 spot. I have to think that New York is looking at this saying, you know what? It wouldn't suck for us if we fell behind Cleveland. So, you always hear the tank for the top of the draft.
Right.
There could be a tank for 4.
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
I don't think Boston and New York care one rip.
You don't?
No.
They
Mike,
should.
You think I'm wrong?
They should. New York especially, not Boston.
I don't think Boston.
If I'm Boston, I'm taking whoever comes my way. But if I'm New York,
knowing Mike the way that I do, I don't think they care.
It's going to be interesting. They might not care, but they might be bounced in round 2.
Last point real quick, and I know we got to get to Super
They're not
Chats
better than
after
Boston.
a break, but in terms of the Mitchell-Harden end-of-game combo, Chris Fedor did a really good job highlighting in his article after the win on Saturday what actually came to fruition on that game-winning Mitchell layup where they blitzed Harden and dumped it off was something they worked on in practice earlier in the week. And practices this late in the season very rarely happen. But Kenny Atkinson called the practice. The entire focus of the practice was late game offense.
Wow.
When teams blitz either Harden or Mitchell, how to find the space to get the ball out of their hands into the others, and then they're playing 4-on-3 advantage basketball.
Smart.
It worked to perfection. Is it going to work that well every time? No. You're going to miss shots. But it was cool to see something they practiced that doesn't often happen come to fruition in a moment like that between 2 stars. I thought that was really, really well done by Chris, so make sure you check it out.
Very cool. Yeah, it is rare that happens. You're working on something in practice this late in the year.
Right. Yeah, and we talked about it before, but blitzing ball handlers and getting the ball out of their hands is the first thing you do in the playoffs.
Sure.
What else do you have in your bag after that?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're gonna need more than one play to do it.
Yeah.
We're taking a break. Super Chats on the other side, and then we say goodbye. All right, Mike. How'd we do?
We got Super Chats to wrap up today's show, so let's read them. Any Lover G says, how much do you think running out of shotgun versus under center affected the running game? Also, our tight ends having to constantly help the tackles. Leviston, it certainly did not help. with the offensive line last year. Damon Johnson says, I guess Allen, Burrow, and Jackson don't hold the ball either, right? We saw Allen run backwards, losing 20 yards too, by the way. Kevin Browner is not a fan of the WKYC app. He says he got an error message live, and not being able to rewind if you join late is an issue. We'll look into that. I'm not sure on the answer to that one.
Yeah, there's no slide bar to go back.
We'll look into that. That's
I don't know that there
we'll
will be either.
I'll at least ask. I promise you guys I will ask about that. Mr. In My Zone says, just say Stefanski couldn't scheme up a productive offense, inherited a decent team and didn't evolve. Monken is a proven OC, and Shador's ceiling is very high if developed. Kevin was trash. What up, G. Bush?
What up?
Kimmy Ungi says, can't hype Coach of the Year award, then downplay the Pro Bowl. Has any of us ever hyped up the Coach of the Year?
It's an accomplishment for sure, but to compare, the Coach of the Year carries much more cachet than a Pro Bowl, in my view.
When 7 quarterbacks in front of you
all say no thanks.
No thanks.
Yeah, I mean, there's only you got 16 in the league.
If 14 coaches would have said, I don't want the award, and then you hand it to the 15th guy.
Fact.
Hey, man, if y'all want to put G. Bush in the Pro Bowl, go ahead. I'm a Pro Bowler watchers right now. You know what I'm saying? Put me in the Pro Bowl. I could go. I can hang out. I can run some read options.
That's not even what it used to be. You used to go to Hawaii.
Yeah. Oh, no. That was
now,
crazy.
if I was a player, I'd be like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good, too.
Brad Shadrick says, the first hour on KYC was not great because I couldn't pause or rewind. I watch at work and need to pause for meetings, so I have to watch the second hour first, then I'll watch the first hour on demand. Damon Johnson says, now you don't believe the player that was there and playing. It's crazy work.
Who said they don't believe him?
No, we
Not
actually,
one person said, I don't believe
what
you.
we actually said was, you have to believe him. We respect and we both like Jarvis Landry. What I said was, it's stunning to me that it didn't get out.
All we said was, I would like the specifics of at least the season. What season are you referring to?
Yeah, when did this take place?
Mr. MJ says maybe Jarvis was talking about Stefanski giving up play calling in the playoffs
We
versus
mentioned
the
that,
Steelers.
Yeah.
Then took it back versus the KC loss. Mr. In My Zone says
Apparently
when
he's
someone
supposed to call
in building
plays
From his basement.
Yeah.
when someone in the building says something against the local media narrative, y'all get so confused and lost for words. And G. Guavo says Jarvis was a player that was good in his time. Here, a big piece. How all of a sudden doesn't he know what he's talking about? Jason thinks he knows more than Jarvis. LOL.
When did I say that? Please remind me when I said I know more than Jarvis.
No, you didn't say that.
I never said that.
Of course not.
I said I would like to speak.
I think the most part about it is that the stunning part was Jarvis Landry said it and his reputation is sterling. 2 is that he said it and it didn't get out if it is true. Like
that to me is the headline.
I'm like how did
there were moles on that team. We know there were moles on that team.
Yeah.
There were coaches that got fired for being
one of his coaches got fired for being a mole. Somebody that had an axe to grind would have called Mary Kay or would have called Jason or would have called someone and said, hey, FYI, Kevin's not calling the plays anymore.
Yeah.
This isn't a minor detail. This is a major, major detail. Back tomorrow. Peace.